continuing my quest to see more films in 2024 than I managed in 2023. I've actually just been to see a film that was released last year, but I never got around to seeing, and I'm glad I managed to catch it while it was still in cinemas. It is The Hunger Games, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Or is it The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Songbirds? Songbirds. It's really cold. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So this is a prequel written by Suzanne Collins, who wrote the original Hunger Games trilogy. Was published, I want to say, in 2020. I definitely remember getting it sent to me via Amazon during lockdown by my little sister. So I have read the book. In recent years, my ability to concentrate on a physical book has waned somewhat, and I now rely on audiobooks because my squirrely little brain won't focus on words on a page. So I did read the physical book a few years ago now. And I would say this is a solid adaptation. I am glad I made the effort to see it in the cinema. I think it's flawed, but it is entertaining, and it rests mainly on its central performances. So this is a prequel, as I said. It is the 10th annual Hunger Games, whereas the original Hunger Games film that came out whenever it did, I don't know the year off the top of my head, that focused on the 74th Hunger Games, so it's quite a bit before. This is where the Hunger Games is in its infancy. It's not that long after the war, and the character we're introduced to is a young version of Coriolanus Snow, the man who will go on to become President Snow, who is obviously the big bad guy in the more recent Hunger Games film. More recent, older, current mythology Hunger Games. Does that make any sense? I'm not making any sense. It's desperately cold in this car. So in the films we saw with Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson, it was Donald Sutherland who played President Snow, who's obviously the villain of the piece to a certain extent. Here we see him as a much younger man. He comes from a formerly wealthy family. His father was a respected war general, was part of the minds behind the Hunger Games being created, but in recent times the Snow family have fallen into poverty, which they're trying desperately to hide from everybody. He goes to a prestigious school. He's hoping to get a scholarship to go on to university because he doesn't have the money to pay for the tuition. He's bright, he's intelligent, he's desperately handsome, charismatic. And we find out at the beginning that the decision has been made that this academic prize that he thought he was going to win has actually been replaced by a mentor scheme whereby students from the school will mentor the tributes that have been chosen for the 10th Hunger Games. What's interesting is in the 74th and 75th Hunger Games competitions, the mentors are previous victors. And what's really interesting in this film, as we see, or in the book, we see how a lot of the trends that are still present in the Hunger Games many, many years later started back at the 10th. So the idea of being able to sponsor tributes, the idea of being able to send them gifts, give them donations and such like. This is where the idea of making them likeable comes from, you know, making the tributes into stars comes from, because at this point, 10 years in, the audiences have stopped watching. They're bored of watching children kill each other. So the head game maker, Dr. Gall, played wonderfully unhinged by Viola Davis with two different coloured eyes and a big mad grey fro. She comes up with all sorts of ideas to sort of shake things up. So Coriolanus Snow, who desperately wants to win this money so he can go on to university, decides that he will do everything he can to make his tribute popular. And the tribute assigned to him is the girl from District 12. Obviously in the Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen is the girl from District 12, but this is many, many decades before, and the girl in question is Lucy Gray Baird, played beautifully by Rachel Ziegler. Most people will know Rachel Ziegler from Spielberg's West Side Story that came out a couple of years ago. She's also been cast to play Snow White in the Disney live-action remake, which I think's been pushed back by a year, so we're not getting that anytime soon. she's a very, very watchable presence. She's beautiful, but Jesus wept, the voice on her, good lord. I mean, obviously I know she can sing. I've seen West Side Story. She's very, very good in that. But the character in the book of Lucy Gray Baird does sing quite a lot. She's what they call them covies? They're basically like carnival folk. And one of the ways she catches the public's attention is at the reaping. She sings a song on stage and it becomes this spectacle, and that's what Snow wants to build on, and that's what Gaul is pushing for. You've also got Peter Dinklage as Dean Highbottom, a perpetually drunk sort of head of the school where Snow is a pupil. And I think that Peter Dinklage is one of the most interesting and watchable actors of his generation. He's just absolutely fascinating, and I love what Game of Thrones did for his career, that it brought him to the public attention, because he does get some really interesting roles and he's really good in this. As I said, Viola Davis is superb. Rachel Ziegler as Lucy Gray. Coriolanus Snow is played by a British actor called Tom Blythe, and I've had a little look at his IMDb page. He's been in various bits and bobs so far, including, I laughed, I went back as far as he was in Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, the one with Russell Crowe, cast as feral child. So clearly not a big role for him there, but he is a hell of a screen presence. He's very handsome. It's interesting because he's not ripped, because it doesn't make sense. He's supposed to be quite starved. He's doing everything he can to hide how poor his family are and hide how bloody hungry he is. So he's quite slight and quite lean, but there's a real presence about him. He's this beautiful blonde curly hair, and he's trading on his family's goodness. A very noisy car just pulled in next to me. He's trading on his family's good name. He's trading on his looks and his intelligence and doing everything he can to survive. And what you're watching in this film, as well as watching the Hunger Games become something entirely different for what it has been for its first 9 years and what it will continue to be, you're also watching how quite an intelligent, compassionate man becomes the monster that we see many, many years later, played beautifully by Donald Sutherland. So it is interesting. It's done in 3 distinct acts. It even says, like, on each part of the film, like the Mentor, the Games, and then the Peacemaker. So it is 3 distinct chapters. It's perhaps a little bit too long. The Games is like the middle section of the film, so the whole film isn't Hunger Games, much the same as with the Hunger Games Catching Fire. The Quarter Quell is sort of part of the story but not the whole story, and it's the same thing here. But you still get a Hunger Games, you still get children killing children in disgusting and brutal ways. It's good, it's really good. I'm dead interested to see what he goes on to do. He's incredibly watchable, like I said. She is phenomenal and her voice is just off the scale. And yeah, Viola Davis was clearly having an absolute ball playing an unhinged nut job with a massive hair. Bern Gorman, the British actor who I know mainly from Torchwood but has popped up in various bits and bobs, he plays the sort of head of the peacekeepers in District 12. So it's a good cast. It looks very luscious and fascinating and interesting, a sort of dystopian future type thing. So yeah, there's lots to recommend it. I do think it's flawed. I do think it's too long, but I'm really glad I got to see it. And it is interesting to see how they've paved the way for what is to come. There are no more books or films planned as long as as far as I'm aware. The one other thing I have to mention, performance-wise, in the original Hunger Games films, the wonderful Stanley Tucci played Caesar Flickerman, who's the host of the Hunger Games, and he's all like massive teeth and blue hair and turning on the charm, and he's just such a fascinating character. In a film which is full of quite big characters, he really stands out. In this film, Jason Schwartzman plays Lucky Flickerman, obviously a much older relative, and he's so like Stanley Tucci. It's really, really eerie watching how he's got like the mannerisms, and it's like a sort of homage, I guess, although he's playing a character that comes before. But I just thought that was a really nice tie-in, and the way he plays it is superb. And it's like this, he's a cheesy weatherman slash game show host slash Hunger Games host slash just, you know, just very, very good in front of the camera, and all, like I say, teeth and eyebrows and mustache and charm. So yeah, I thought that was a really nice bit of work from Jason Schwartzman there. But yeah, good, solid, enjoyed it. Third film of the year. It's only the 8th of January. I need to get out of this car park because I'm freezing. Thank you for watching, and I will be back soon. Katie out.